Hello everyone, welcome to this new video in the zombie series. In this video we're going to be setting up a zombie bite animation. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. This will be uploaded to Patreon. So here we are back in our scene, and first things first, let's create some melee clips. So I'm going to be using melee clips simply because we need that root motion movement. So let's call this bite NPC, and we don't need to assign any bones here, so we're going to be playing a clip like it's a simple gesture basically, but we want the root motion, which is why we're using melee clips. So it's not an actual attack or anything like that, but we want to preview it, so we'll leave that on for now, and we'll look some up, and then we need to do the same. So let's just duplicate it. There we go. Make sure to duplicate with the duplicate button, not Control D, as that will cause some issues with the actions we'll be adding. And then this one will be player. There we go. Quite simple. So we need to find some animations that will be good for this, and obviously we have that animation pack for zombie animations. Again, if you have different ones, the most big chance they'll have some paired animations. Most of these types of packs with zombies will have those. If yours doesn't, try to find some that do, because those types of paired animations are actually the coolest. So yeah, we'll be looking at some of these bite ones. So we have a couple. So this is the attacker, which is going to be the zombie. Pretty cool. Keep in mind, loop can be turned off, and root transform XZ needs to be turned off as well. As yes, the melee clip will cover this, so don't make it double, because otherwise the distance will be double. It will just look weird. So we have the attacker, and then we need the victim as well. Not sure this is the best one. Oh, there we go, victim. So yeah, it will be a bite attack, so he'll attack. I know it's called attempt, but I like this one, so he does bite a bit, but we're not dying of it, so that makes it an attack, not so much a finisher basically. Cool. So we can turn those off as well here, and yeah, that's it. We can just drag them in. I hope the clips have the same name. They do. So I'm just gonna press rename. Basically copy this so it's easier to find them for the clips. There we go. So let's look up neck, and this is the NPC, so that needs to be the attacker in this case. So attack. I'm going to reduce this a tiny bit. It's a bit too aggressive otherwise, and then we extract the root motion. Now we want to look we want to see what it looks like, and it looks awesome. Looks really cool. So it's a small bite attack, and then the player pushes him back, and that's what we want. We don't want this to be a finisher for him. It needs to be an attack, because proper finisher, well, then it's end game. Cool. And then for the player, same thing. We want to look up the victim. There we go. And then we're going to extract. Now first off, we're going to be looking at the NPC one. So what do we want to do here? So first off, because of the way the colliders are set up on both, one of them needs to be turned off. And we're going to do that on our NPC here. On our player actually, or NPC, doesn't really matter. We can do either or, doesn't matter much. So we need to do that on execute. So component, enable component, and then we're gonna do, let's do player, it's just easier to reference to. So character controller There we go. Is going to be turned off. The clip takes 3 seconds, so we're gonna wait 3 seconds. Because again, keep in mind, this is not, we're not doing an actual attack. This was just to preview it. So we need to keep that full length of the clip in mind. So that's 3 seconds. There we go. Wait 3 seconds, and then we're going to turn it back on. There we go. And then yeah, you can add your damage, so attributes, player, subtract, health, and then subtract whatever value you want. Doesn't really matter. Cool. So yeah, that's it, and we're doing that on execute because basically we need to make sure that it is actually executing before we're going to be turning off the character controller for 3 seconds. Yes, in case you're wondering, it does mean the player will still play their own clip, but the collider will be inactive, making it so that the zombie can actually get physically close without the one of the colliders getting in the way. We could do that on the zombie as well, so I choose player. If you want to do the zombie instead, that's fine. Just keep in mind that you know, during this the player can't be hit by anything else because the collider is inactive, and that's why I prefer doing the player, because the zombie, for example, if you have some fire in your game or whatever that's burning, it could still hit the zombie, you know, things like that, but it's completely up to you. I'm gonna do uninterruptible, so he can't be interrupted. If you want there to be an interrupt mechanism, you know, do that. It's a relatively short clip. I don't want to have that be interrupted. Cool, and that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna do an audio clip, but you know, definitely add one. And yeah, we're pretty much done. Again, make sure that this is turned on. So for the player, it's going to be quite a bit easier. Again, keep in mind that you need to make sure that you duplicate it using this function, because otherwise we'd have the exact same actions being listed here, which we don't want. Where's our player? Really, really far away. There we go. So byte player. We can drag in the player just to preview what it looks like. Come on, open up. There we go. So drag in the player. Okay, that's not working. Then we'll preview on the character. Doesn't really matter. I don't care. There we go. Are you telling me that it's actually playing on the player? Yeah, it is. That's fun. Nice. So by player, and as you can see, so it's gonna go like this. So we do need a bit of easing, as you know, that's not a normal starting stance. But again, this will be a quick, swift thing. So I would like to keep it relatively short with the easing, not too much. And then yeah, perfect. Now here we don't need to add anything else. Everything else will be done through the behavior of the NPC, the zombie in this case. Just make sure extract room motion and add whatever clips you want. Again, no affected bones, nothing. We're going to be playing this clip. Cool. Yeah, perfect. So that's pretty awesome. We can, for the next thing, we're actually going to be relying on the player mostly. So what we're going to do is we're going to be setting up a marker on the player. Game creator and marker. There we go. So let's turn on those gizmos. I've already tested this, which is why I know the distance. So we're going to do it like this. Now the reason for the rotation is you need to make sure that the zombie is in the correct distance, the correct angle, because otherwise, you know, synced clips won't look good, because they won't actually be in sync. So yeah, the distance needs to be perfect, and you know, that's why we're doing this. I'm going to increase the marker a bit, 2 even. No, that doesn't mean that the zombie will suddenly go up, but it does mean that you know, there's less chance of something being in the way for the zombie to actually get to this marker. Now if you've ever played a game like The Last of Us or something like that, what they do in order to play this properly, they do camera trickery. So even though you don't notice it, because it's a single player game, so you don't see anything, in The Last of Us, when these sync type of animations happen, either the player or the enemy actually gets teleported to a specific location, which is hidden with the camera movement, so you don't actually notice it happening, because that's the only way to really get things to be synced properly for some executions. So yeah, we'll be doing the same type of camera trickery for this. Just makes a lot of sense. So we're going to be adding a box collider, and there we go. Make sure it's set to trigger, and then trigger on start, and we need to store this in a variable. Now the reason we need to store this in a variable is quite simple. We're going to be using the behavior to reference to this. If we don't have a variable to reference it to for a behavior, we can't reference to anything that is literally in the scene. Now luckily there is a way to do this without global variables, by referring to the player itself. So we need to store it on the player, which means the local variables need to be exactly on the player, and we'll be storing the marker there. That's one of the ways to reference to it. And again, you could do this in a global variable, that's fine. But because of Patreon, I want to be able to export it and don't want to mess with your global variables. So we're going to do local and then player, and then we'll call it marker byte. Makes a lot of sense. Cool. So yeah, that's the marker. The zombie is going to be teleported to here. Now that's easier to do than teleporting the player to a specific location, because if you do the player, you'll need to do a lot more camera trickery for that to not be noticeable. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, because plenty of games actually do that, but it's just easier to teleport the NPC and hide that with some camera trickery. So next up, we're going to be adding a second camera motor. So camera motor, other camera motor, there we go. And let's give this a name. This will also be byte, and we'll be locking this in a specific way. So yeah, let's turn off this so we can't move it with the mouse, and the zoom is going to be up close, like up close. Let's make this as small as we can. There we go. So this is going to be incredibly up close to the player, like really up close. But that's the point, you know, because it will be like zoomed in, something like this, and that will really display the action, you know, a bit more intense. Now we need to do the same thing as we did with the marker, so we need to store this. So we're going to do trigger on start, and then again actions, game object, and there we go. Let's add that on the player as well. So this was the wrong one, not player. Marker bytes. I'm not sure why I renamed that, sorry about that. And then here, camera byte. Let's just keep it simple, and there we go. So we have yeah, so we have two different bytes. Then let's have a look. So we have motorbike. We're going to store that local player, and then camera byte, and the value is the invoker. Just want to be sure if I actually did it right with the marker. Yeah, marker bytes. Okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, we'll be referencing to those, and that's pretty much it. Now next up is a adding that to the behavior of the zombie. So let's open up his behavior. There we go. And as you can see, we have you know, these options for when he's attacking, and this is where we can add you know, the next attack basically, which is going to be a bite. Now, in case you have multiple different behaviors, and that's the reason I'm going to show you a different way to do this. If you have multiple different behaviors for the zombie because you added some additional ones, we can actually do the following. So we can do a behavior graph in this mix. There we go. And then we're going to be adding a second behavior. Let's add a new behavior. Behavior tree, and let's call this zombie bite. There we go. Going to be dragging this in. Now, calling this can literally work with the same type of conditions as you're used to, so that's all completely fine. And if you want an additional conditions, so for example, attribute player health, because it takes off 20, so it needs to be more than 25. I don't know why, but just because. That's as a condition, for example. And we're going to enter this, and you'll see the original one is still here. And then we're going to do a new root. And then here we can do, for example, a random selector. I know that seems a bit weird, but this is a way you can basically add multiple tasks with different synced animations if you want some variation, so you don't always want to see the exact same animation happening. You can do it like this. So I'm only going to be adding one because I only want one synced animation, but basically you can add a second task, and with all of the same actions I'm going to show you in a bit. And then it will randomly pick one of those attack animations, because if you've seen in the folder, there's so many of them. It's kind of a shame not to use them. And one of the things we do know is when playing a game, it gets a bit tiring of always seeing the same finisher type animations in a row. So adding a bit of variety, you can do it like this. Now, why am I doing this in a separate behavior? Simply because if, for example, you will have a second behavior for a different zombie type or whatever, but you would like to use those bite animations again, all you need to do is simply call on the different behavior graph, just like I did now. And then you don't have to set up all of those things another time. So we'll just save you some time for multiple behavior graphs. It's something that I actually use in my games now. It's something that I kind of overlooked for quite a while, and now started using it in my own games because it just saves me tons of time. And I actually do it for so many tasks in the behavior tree, simply because so much can be reused. So I have villagers, I have guards, and all of those have a lot of these types of synced tasks, so stealth kills, things like that, for example. And I don't want to have to set up the exact same thing, you know, again. So this is one of the easy ways to do it. So just reference to a shared graph. Cool. Other than that, it doesn't change anything. It's just so you can reuse it with ease and don't have to set things up again. So let's get started. So first off, we need to make sure that the focus is turned off. Otherwise, this is going to cause some issues. Otherwise, it will cause some issues basically with playing the animations, because they'll be focused on each other, so they'll keep turning around each other. Looks really weird. So yeah, it needs to be turned off. Property player is controllable needs to be turned off. And one of the things that I recently started doing, what did we set up for the trigger here? So yeah, we have this, and then with the left button we can input melee. Now that's something you want to avoid. You don't want that type of input. So basically what I started adding recently to my projects is a simple condition. So let's copy this. Let's remove these actions. There we go. And then property player is controllable. So this only works if the player is set to controllable. If the player is not set to controllable, then we can't actually use the input melee. I know, it seems really simple, but yeah, basically turning off is controllable doesn't mean you can't do melee anymore, because you can. You'll try the trigger and you'll see you'll still be able to use the melee attack. That's because the is controllable is just for movement, it's not for any additional actions. So adding this simple condition actually allows you to make sure that whenever you set player is, you know, not controllable, that he can't do anything else. So no melee, no whatever additional things you add. So yeah, simple little thing. Cool. Then next up, we need to change the camera. Now for camera, there's two different ones. So we have change camera, which is direct, and we have change camera from variable. These are split up. Didn't used to be one action, but then it didn't work properly. Now it's two different actions. And we're going to do player and then the camera byte. This needs to be quick, but you don't want no transition time, because then it's a tiny bit too snappy. So you want it to be quick but not immediate. So we've got that. Then we're going to be teleporting that zombie to our marker location. So invoker, and then local variable player marker byte, and then make sure rotate is turned on as well. So that's why that direction of that marker was so important. It needs to follow the rotation as well. Now we're doing teleport instead of walk, because walking for one takes time. It's not instant. He literally needs to walk there. It's a bit of gliding. It's just too slow. So we're doing teleport, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this camera change, to hide that teleportation a bit. Cool. Then let's add a small wait to make sure all of this happens first before we continue with the rest of our tasks. This is really short. It's not noticeable. However, it does separate everything following from this. So this will all happen first before we continue. That's why we have that really short break. So we're going to do a camera shake, just to make things a bit more interesting. And it's not a burst. We'll do a sustain. I can't remember how strong this had to be. Something like this, and we'll do player. There we go. Just makes things a bit more intense if we do the shake. Then we're going to do play melee clip. There we go. In case you don't have this, I'll put the link in the description. It's a Game Creator Hub action that allows you to play a melee clip at any point, so it doesn't actually have to be a weapon input. So I'll put the link in the description. It's really simple. So we'll do invoker and player, of course. There we go. And then we need to add the right clips. So NPC and player. There we go. So they need to play at the same time, obviously, because they're in sync animations, which is another reason why that transition in time needs to be identical, because otherwise, yeah, they need to be identical. The transition out doesn't have to be, transition in has to be. Cool. Then we're going to wait. Now we remember that the clip took 3 seconds to complete, so we need to wait that 3 seconds. Then we can make the player controllable again. And we're going to change back to our different camera. Now this time around we're just going to do change camera, the normal one, because we'll make sure that this is set to be the main camera motor. That makes it like a kind of universal tick. Don't need to refer to a variable. you can just instantly go back. We'll do the same short 0.25, but you can make that a bit longer if you want to ease out of that. Just keep in mind, the longer you make it, the more it can get in the way of the action in the game. So yeah. Then we're going to do a stop. What is it? Shake. Actually, we can just copy that. And we're going to stop our shake. There we go. This might be a bit too intense, by the way. Our fade time needs to be like really short, 0.25. There we go. Yeah, perfect. And then I'm going to add another weight, and this time it's not to, you know, for anything other than making sure the player at least has a short moment to get away or to attack himself, because otherwise this could literally go on repeat and you just keep getting bitten. So we do need that short little break, just to make sure the player can take a breather. And that's it. That's all we have to do. Now let's have a look if what I set up actually looks good, because we don't know if it looks good. And in order to make sure that it actually plays as well, for now I'm just going to turn off these. There we go. Just for now, just turn it off, just to make sure we can actually see it straight away, because otherwise with the random selector will just take ages. And yeah, sweet. Let's try it out. Oh, okay. I changed that camera motor at some point. Apologies. So that needs to be adventure camera again. 0.1. There we go. .5. Allow zoom. Yeah, we're all good. Cool. Perfect. So let's approach him. Damn, I was far away. I think that was because of the Lost Wonder video. Cool. He's gonna come at us. And yeah, could be slightly better, but not too bad. Could definitely be slightly better though. Okay, we've lost too much health already, didn't we? That's why he's no longer attacking. Okay, so I'm going to, whenever this happens, I'm going to pause and see if we need to realign the marker a bit. Or something. One of the two. The animations or the marker or whatever. Okay, so let's have a look. So actually it's our player that seems to be, let's turn all of this off. Backpack is a bit in the way. I don't think the player and the NPC are on the same height. Are they? Yeah, they are. Is the player model higher? Yeah, the player model is higher. Okay. I was thinking, because it looks a bit too high, so if we lower the player model width, well, the same. I think it should just be 0.1 by default. It's a bit dark, but yeah, that's a better height. So the player is a bit too high, that's the issue here. And that's fine, we can change that. We don't have anything to set the player lower, is there? No, okay. So we'll do it like that. Cool. Let's do this again. There we go. should have just dragged the player a bit closer, but that's okay. That's better. And of course you can tweak this all you want, you know, change the marker a bit. But as you can see, it's a short attack, but it does leave the player time to basically get away. There we go. Now, one of the things we do want to change is exactly this, and that's how it should be. So let's get back to the behavior and make sure that this doesn't happen if the player is attacking, because that would be a bit weird. So if the player is attacking, player is not attacking, then it can happen. If the player is in attack, this shouldn't happen because that would be kind of cheap. And that's it. We can reconnect everything else and we're done. So yeah, this is just one of the ways to do it. Now, if you want to add a second one, because you know, there's so many different different one bite attacks, like paired attacks anyway. You know, there's bite at leg, there's, you know, there's plenty of them. You know, you can do it like this, so just add a second task, and, you know, copy all of this and just add different clips, and at least that way you have a bit of variation in these synced attacks, and it looks really cool. Now, if you want this to be something that basically where you have like a quick time event and you can press a couple of buttons to get off, you need to be using these ones, so the ones with start, loop and end. There we go. And instead of doing the melee clips, you really need to be using states, so both the NPC and the zombie need to be in a state that is interruptible. If you're interested in seeing how that works with some quick time events, let me know, put it in the comments, and I can cover that in the next video. We can set that up as one of the variations, for example. But yeah, just let me know if you're interested in that. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.